So my name is Sheila Corona, and welcome to another conscious conversation, this time with Summer Isabel and Lisa Flamino Resch. And Summer, I'd love for you to answer Lisa's question, and because it was about the subtle body, right?
Oh, yes,
Well,
Lisa had something to talk about with that.
yeah, well, so I what I was saying was that when you reached out, Summer, with this idea of a topic for us to discuss together, I loved it and it felt extremely synchronistic to me because this is the arena with which I've been playing lately. Like this, that really is like you put a fine point right on it. Um, what I've been doing. Like I would not have labeled it that way, but when I felt into your suggestion, and your suggestion was, if I have this correct, you correct me if I'm wrong here, but that you were looking to speak about the role of the subtle body in healing and physical health. Is that correct?
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's really my favorite playground. My favorite arena is that subtle realm that and I sometimes I'll refer to it as the pre-body template or the etheric body, the spirit body, the light body, like however you want to hold it and talk about it, that's the body that, and of course you've got your pain body, your emotional body, our physical body. They all work together. Our mind is a body, right? And it all creates in synergistic way our experience, our reality here on the planet. And even today, like my process for these conversations that we have together, whether it be recorded or not, whether it be in book study or just casual conversations, um, what I like to do is show up, and that's it, just show up, not be attached to an agenda or a point that I must make. Because when I used to do that, and I did used to do that a lot, um, I missed what was said because I was formulating or fomenting what I'm going to say next because I'm attached to a point or an agenda, a subject that I feel must be expressed or understood by someone else. I realize that lessons aren't taught, so I'm really not here to teach anybody. I'm here to experience, and that the teachee, a student is a state of being. So I cannot make someone learn something. They have to want to learn something. Lessons are learned. It's an internal process. And honestly, everything here is for me. So I takes the other person out of the equation for me. I'm not here for you. I'm here for me. You're here to do you, and I'm here to do me. And together, the we is all that is. And so your opinions, your stories, your perspectives offer me so much if only I am present to receive them. And so I try to show up in these conversations empty, if you will, neutral, and to receive in the receiving mode what you have to offer. Because everything here is trying to show me myself. You're a piece of me, and to think that you're all wet or that you don't know as much as I do or you have nothing to teach me really cuts me off from the expanse of myself and limits me. And so I wish to enter these conversations in a limitless form. So when we had our conversation earlier, Sheila and I just came from my story recording, and when I sit down, I sort of tune in and I ask my greater being to guide the story, to tell the story so that it helps me to see and reinforce what I need to see and understand about myself. Because I've learned that when I talk about myself, I'm revealing parts of me. And so I'm taken to observing what comes out of my mouth without judgments and looking at it and seeing that how does this serve me? And sometimes the answer is, well, it doesn't. It would serve me better not to say that or not to focus that way. Because I've learned a lot just from saying things that, were not necessarily serving my chosen experience, but rather the opposite. So, what's very interesting to me is I never know what I'm going to say when I get up here. I have no idea what's going to come out of this mouth. And so today it was an intense focus on the subtle body. So I find that so interesting that that is and perfect because that means there's messages in this conversation for me to learn more about the subtle body. And the fact that you called it fourth summer means there's it's on your mind. There's something there for you. So I would love to hear from you if you don't mind sharing what prompted the idea for this conversation.
Yeah, mainly because, I've been dealing with these health concerns over the last year or so. And um, you know, I find myself, so I'm kind of more of an intellectual. Like I find myself, I'm very intellectual. I'm always in my head. And I think maybe this is part of the journey for me too, to like get out of my head and like really get into my body, right? Um, and into my heart, and into my deeper knowing. Um, but along this journey, I find that like I continue to always like be drawn into treating everything from the physical, like, oh, let's try this supplement. Let's throw this, at it. Let's throw this at it. Let's throw this at it. And I get into this momentum of only thinking about it on the physical level. And then I'll have these rememberings. Oh yeah, like, well, everything starts in the subtle planes before it materializes on the physical, right? And yes, you like there's very real things on the physical that you have to deal with, right? But to me, there has to be some kind of pattern or way of holding myself or way of being that allowed me to be open or resonant with the illness, right? With the congestion and the stagnation that happens, that creates the perfect environment for dis-ease, right?
Yes.
And so, and I also, I was listening to this shaman talk about how the Western mind thinks of illness too. And it's like, you guys are completely missing the point. Like it starts in the subtle realms. You can try to hit it with the plants. The plants will help you, to a certain extent. But if you don't address that underlying habit, pattern, way of seeing things, way of carrying yourself in the world, then it's not going to ultimately heal, right? It's going to keep coming back.
Yeah.
And it's just like that epigenetics discussion where, for the longest time people thought, oh, it's in my genes, I'm doomed. But it's actually no, it's whether it's your choices of diet, lifestyle, mental awareness, like what you're focusing on every day, which turns that gene on or not, right?
Right.
Yep.
And so thank God that there's, that understanding really dawning in the awareness. And obviously we're having a physical experience here and we've been very physically oriented. So no wonder we're trying to fix everything at that level. right?
Right.
Because that's the level that we're really focused in on
Right.
at the moment. So yeah, that's just kind of some of the things that I've been, thinking about and just attempting to refocus myself as well on the more subtle things that, you know, is causing the optimum environment for illness, you
Right.
know.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And I'm so glad that you reached out and called this conversation forward because um, not only is it helpful for you and me, but because you're also willing to record it, I know that there's a whole bunch of people who are feeling and sensing these same things. And I think we're, as a collective, ready to change our focus. So I love this. So thank you for calling this
Yeah.
forward. I
I have to,
really appreciate
I
it.
have to agree wholeheartedly. And I know for me, for one thing, I can't, and it has not escaped my observation to notice that your words were, Summer, that in the last year. And so it would appear to me at any rate that there's been a lot of that for you, for me, for Lisa, for I think a whole lot of
A
people
lot of people.
this past year. And even more than that, perhaps I think it's been more than 1 year for me in particular. Um, and I know that because through all the conversations that we have had, I'm aware that I'm aware of the subtle body and the power of our own thinking, our own thoughts, the
Yeah.
words that come out of our mouths.
Yes.
And I've been told internally, my own guidance, that a lot of what I'm moving through has to do with my thinking.
Mhm.
And so, you know, it's it's still just a matter of those grooves. And I think it was you that said that once before, Summer, that the grooves seem to be so deep. I would like to uh I'm not going to just believe. I'm going to suggest to myself that the grooves are perhaps this is the last grooves. This is the last of the deepest grooves. Um, I'm going to move forward with that in my mind and in my heart as that it is the last of the deepest grooves that because it's so ingrained, it has been so ingrained and easy to go back to. And I think part of it has been that it has felt like such a long, hard slog. And it didn't look like it was getting anywhere on the out there. It actually looked like it was getting worse, right? But I don't know. In these moments of now, it feels to me like, well, of course it looks like that out there because it's finally getting out onto the table for the all to get a really good look at it so that we can just get over ourselves finally
Mhm.
as a whole perhaps because that pre-matter template that subtle body uh it has I feel like it has the absolute potential to be brand new.
Mhm.
Yes.
I have experienced that in my life, having been so ill for so long
Mhm.
back in 2013 and moving forward to about 2017, I I just kept getting progressively better and better and better. And I think something happened around the 2019 time period. And for whatever the reason, it felt like I went backward in some sort of way. But I've decided right here and now, actually, there'll be no more of that. Those grooves have now lessened. I see them quite clearly. So I
Well,
want to
if
thank you for that because you're the one that brought that groove, because that is how that happens. The conditioning programming is like a groove in the record.
Like the record, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was getting a visual while you were talking about that, Sheila, about a groove, right? Um, so and you were saying somewhere that it was really, really deep and hard to crawl out of. Um, and I was thinking about how when you get to the bottom, then there's nothing but to come up from that. And also what's in the bottom, like if you were to dig deep into the earth per se, you find the roots of a thing down there at the bottom. So like there's a benefit to riding that groove straight down to the root of it, because it feels to me that this conversation of the subtle body is the root of our problem. And
Mhm.
like you were saying, the plants can only go so far because they're treating symptoms at this point. They're not getting to the root of the real issue, which is the stinking thinking. The mind virus is at play here. And without rooting it out, little pun intended, we really can't change it. We can't, we don't have control of it. It's controlling us. So staying in the mind kept me in a loop of the symptoms. Like I wasn't diving deep enough to get to the root of the issue and see it for what it was, and then, changing. Because basically that's what I had to do. I had to change the habits that I had. And I like also the metaphor that you were using there of the record. Because what does a record do? Well, it just goes round and round and round. And it plays the same tunes no matter how many times you play it. It's just the same set of songs. That's all there is there. And you just loop through them again and again and again and again. And so um, to make the change, you have to, pick up that needle and change the record album. So I think getting to the root of it was beneficial, right? Like the circular round and around and around until you wear it out, because the root is there, and the discovery of, like that thinking that isn't serving you, when you finally see it, you can let it go and you can have a whole new thought on the subject, one closer to the reality that we find ourselves in. And then, because what I've discovered about that subtle body, that original template for life, it's perfect and it's rejuvenative. Like it continues to, our bodies are self-healing. Like we just saw on that webinar the other day about the liver, well, all cells, but like how the liver is the only organ that will actually replace itself if you just have a chunk of it. So that really to me screams the regenerative principle at
Mhm.
work here. And so if we were to match our thoughts with the reality we wish to experience, we would. But we're focusing our thoughts to the absence of the experience we wish to experience. And then, of course, that's going to create dis-ease in the body, because you're not at ease with the fact that, well, like for me, I was feeling lack of, oh, say, money for the solutions, or lack of knowledge to know what to do. And all of this is still a focus on the subject, right? My health. But what was I focused on? Well, it was the absence of
Hmm.
whatever it was that I felt I needed for good health. And so that was the template, that was the seed that I planted deep in the ground to grow and to manifest as my experience. And so then I looked at my creation and said, well, that sucks. I hate it. Which left me tethered to even more of it because the universe is saying, oh, you hate it? Okay, well, here's some more. Because the universe just says yes, you know? So it's so important now for me. The most important thing is to look at what it is that I'm focused on. So it's fine to be focused on my health, but am I focused on the lack of it or, the abundance, the rejuvenating factors and working with it and not against it? And the more that I do that, the better I feel. And the solutions are showing up left, right, center. I mean, I'm here now. So that says something. That changing your mind, because I really can't give any one thing outside of me the credit for where I'm at today because again, like what Summer brought up earlier, that a lot of that stuff was treating symptoms. And I'm actually changing it at the root level by acknowledging my subtle body and programming it in a way that supports my vision of the life I wish to experience. And I feel like I'm getting better and better at that, which is then, it's such a beautiful thing. I mean, the majesty of how things work here. And when you figure out how things work here and you work with it, you can see how incredibly powerful and limitless we really are. Because, think about the messes around here. Well, how beautiful. Nobody thought it would be even possible to create such a big mess. Like, you'd think, I don't even know how to figure this out to be so awful. And yet here we are. That's because the universe says, whatever you wish to experience, I'm going to give it to you in spades because there's nothing here but abundance. So we have abundance of mess. How beautiful, and the more that I allow that, because my life, my body was a mess. And I really had to say, look at this beautiful mess I have created. How strong and powerful am I to be so thorough in my messiness? Which means I can also clean it up in a way that I can't even envision or imagine for myself right now. All I have to do is focus on the perfection of this template, and the universe will show me just how perfect it is. So that's really what excites me anymore is that I really do have more control over everything than I've ever given myself credit for. Just allowing myself to see it was the biggest hurdle.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah. You're welcome.
So much there. So much truth there.
Yes. There's
Yeah.
so much to us.
Yeah, there is. It's layers and layers. Puzzle pieces, like
Mhm.
Sheila likes to say.
Very much
Yeah.
puzzle pieces. That's so true. And I really am feeling quite not hopeful is not even the right word, because it's more than that. I don't know, something felt to shift in me overnight in some sort
Oh,
of way. And
do tell. What is that?
yeah, well, I don't even really have the words for it at this moment.
Okay.
I'm
What's
just
it feeling
I
like?
just know that I feel, and hopeful is really the only word I can come up with at the moment, but it feels more than that.
Okay.
And because hopeful is still, future looking, and I feel momentum within my own self.
Oh, I love it.
Um, and perhaps it is because those grooves I've seen that the grooves may have been something that I was stuck in. And now I feel like I've stepped up on the side. At least I've stepped up on the side of getting out of one of those ruts, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I think so. And it's conversations like this, hanging out with folks like you guys that are willing to chat about the things that seem on the surface perhaps to others as fantastical, not even possible, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. Um, but that I personally feel are very real and are showing me all the time uh, through those puzzle pieces, actually. And of course, it's not for nothing, but the nudges that I promise to follow in respect to recording, right? I only record what I'm nudged to record, and I record when I'm nudged to record. And I, through some of that puzzle piece collection, I've come to see very clearly that it has to do with the level of my psyche. If I were to record something just for the sake of recording,
Right.
then it wouldn't do
Time
anything
to
for
make the
me personally.
recording.
Right.
It's different.
It is much different. It seems to me that it is exactly what I need at exactly the proper moment for me. It may or may not be that for anyone else, but it is for me personally. And so it's not lost on me that um, and I actually have a bit to delve into where that is concerned because I learned just today that one, two, three, four of the RZN series that I'm in the midst of Jason's work recording, four of them I recorded out of sequence. I didn't even realize they were part of the RZN series.
Oh,
Mm.
okay.
And I looked at the titles and I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds familiar. So I searched it on my channel, and sure enough, at differing times, I had already recorded those four. So I now I'm going to play an interesting game with myself and see what it is that those spoke to me in regards to, and see the why and the wherefore. I'm hoping I can figure out which ones were first, second, third, and fourth.
Mhm.
Just for not for any reason, but to see about my psyche. I don't know. It's just very
Yeah.
interesting to me.
No, it's a
It's more
beautiful
puzzle
tool.
pieces.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like to use my journals to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, writing about my experience in the moment and just kind of putting down on paper what's going on, what I'm thinking about, what I'm playing with, how I'm feeling, um, and to go back and look at it like what was going on collectively. Like sometimes I'll just reference them because I think, well, I wonder what was happening with me during this particular, set of dates. Like what was going on. And I love that I can, like you did, you went through the archives and looked at them. Um, I have archives, right? Like I can go back and reference what was I thinking about? What was I focusing on? Where was my state of mind, my state of being? What was happening in my day to day? There's so much data in that for me. And it has also proven to be a great pattern recognizing tool. Like I can see the pattern from a distance where in the moment living it, I couldn't see it or feel it. And I usually am in awe of, wow, I can't believe that happened just like that when it did, because I wasn't aware of it on any level. And now with, a little distance, I can look back and go, oh, wow, that was super profound that this happened at that timing, because it helps me to see, the divine hand in it all, source, our soul directing things in a way to show me something that I couldn't see it was taking as it was taking place. But in reflection, I can see it really clearly that, something greater was at play in my life. And it's exciting to see that and integrate that. And that's really how I discovered the importance of the subtle body, because I could see my thinking and I could see like what I was building or overlaying my blue flame with, my original template um, body that was created by the divine, right? I could see where I was heaping mud upon it. And so it was taking on a lumpy, disfigured shape. And I saw how I had done that. And that all I have to do is wash that off, let go of that, and just allow the beautiful design, the original, template to shine through, because it's perfect and it's imperfect, meaning it. So sometimes as a child, I used to think that I wasn't an artist because everything I do is imperfect. I can't make a perfect line. I can't draw a perfect circle. And the color is a little off. And now that we have AI and I'm seeing all the perfect lines and the perfect circles, and I look at it and I go, oh, wow, that is so fake. Because in the divine nature, it allows for imperfection. And now I'm starting to realize the beauty for me anymore, it lies in the imperfection, or the not, when you think about a circle, like what are those things of, is it a protractor? You put the dot in the middle and you draw a perfect circle around it.
Mhm.
If you look at an amoeba, it's not a perfect circle. It's kind of a jagged looking, but it's alive. It's full of life, or look at cellular mitosis. It's round, but it isn't perfectly round, but it has the ability to split itself and be two, and two becomes four, and so on and so on. And so you can see the fluidity of life, and it flows, and it doesn't have rigid definitions and lines and perfect whatever I was seeing as perfection really was imperfection, in that it was dead and not alive, if that makes any
Hmm.
sense. Not sure if I'm
Yeah.
able to convey um, what I'm
Yeah, I
feeling.
was just thinking that too, like because perfection in a way is a completion. And so you're done, it's dead, it's done,
Yes,
right?
thank you. Right?
Yeah. And art is, to me, art
What a good
is
point.
really about the process anyway, isn't
Yes.
it? I mean, we get so caught up in like the final presentation of it, and that's not really why most artists do their art. It's this feeling of like I need to get this out, I need to express this some way, and it's about the process, because in the process then you've expressed it, right? And then it's out there,
And then you just let it go.
and it doesn't matter. Like I always thought art critiquing was so funny, because it's like you're saying that this is good and this is bad. This is someone's expression. How can you judge it good or bad, right or wrong?
Exactly. I always felt the same when it came to art. But you described something quite beautiful there, Summer, in that I've come to see that that is the entire point of
Mhm.
existence on the whole.
Yeah, our
Art,
life is art, isn't
music,
it?
everything. That's right. Life in and of itself is the expression of the
Mhm.
divine through each one of us.
Yeah, like we're the medium for this piece of art.
Exactly correct. And that's
Oh,
why
that's
I
cool.
know with all of me that each one of us have been programmed and conditioned to think that this is good or bad, right or wrong, beautiful or not, based on someone else's, I don't know how even to their raising, their way of looking at things, their perspective, and it's all of it is incorrect. It is exactly what Summer said, the expression of. And that is what each one of us actually are. I love
Mhm.
how you say it, Lisa. You say that you, me, Summer, we are what God is doing on this planet at this moment.
Mhm.
It is the expression of the divine through us in each and every moment,
Yeah.
regardless of what someone might think. Well, you can't say that about this over here because that's dark or that's bad. That is the divine. Trust me, it is, no matter what you might think or feel or say about it.
Yeah, we cannot be separated
No.
from all that is. And that's, well, too, we did such a good job at forgetting we're just one being. That's how powerful we are. We think we're separate, and we're not
No,
at all. In
not on
any
any
in
sort of level.
any way, because the ways that we look at and point to say, well, I'm not you or I'm not that, are superficial and they're finite.
That's right.
So they are by definition not who you are.
No,
It's the piece of
exactly.
art that you've been working on. And it has a fine this picture that I colored has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it will not live forever. Only I can do that. The great I am presence has the eternal nature. And what makes it eternal? Change.
Yep.
It must constantly change form. So we are just the eternal, constantly changing form. Oh man, that's an exciting thing to contemplate.
Yeah, and maybe we're just holding things in place for a lot longer than they should be or are
Thank you.
healthy. And that's what also creates disease in the physical because it
Oh,
creates stagnation. You're trying to hold on to something. Um, I
keep it.
remember listening to someone talk about like they were talking about quantum, a quantum physics kind of perspective where it's like, you're familiar with the concepts like we're mostly space, like the atom is mostly space,
Right.
and that like we don't, it's not even really particles, they're actually waves.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a process, but when we're looking at it, it turns into a particle or something
Right.
like that. It's just like I'm not great at explaining these things, but
No,
No,
you
that
did
was
a great job.
perfect. The waveform collapses into its solid matter
when it's
when it is
observed,
observed. That's right. You
right?
did it perfectly.
But there was this concept that it was really like, every like nanosecond or something, we're actually like blinking out of existence into existence, out of existence into existence. And it's kind of like makes me think of that 0 point where we're source and then we're here and then we're source and then we're here, in a way. And so if that's true, do can is is the experience of disease and like these long held illnesses and things in the body, like is that even necessary? Like if we have that access to source, can't we just make a whole new body in a nanosecond when we're back at source, and then we re- reappear here in a perfect, back into our perfect template?
No,
Like I've kind
actually, I
of
think you're
been
right.
like on just considering that, and then in my meditations, like just focusing on returning to that 0 point source and seeing that 0 point, that source, um, tuning every particle, tuning every cell, speaking through the nucleus of every cell, right? And restoring the natural order of creation throughout the field. That, that to me is my divine birthright. You know what I mean?
It
To
is.
return to the natural order with ease and with grace. It's the mind that wants to struggle with it. And also, I think a lot of us are in this like war timeline, like, oh, it's their fault, they're doing that to us. And it's this light and dark, this battle of light and dark, good and evil. And I just feel like we're I think we're complete with that, aren't we? Like, are we coming to the completion of that? I sure hope so, because I feel a tiredness about that whole thing. And um I feel like it's time to just surrender all the overcomplications that we've created for ourselves and let God or source or whatever that you want to call it come through and fix it, because it can,
Very
right?
interesting that you bring surrender forward, because just this past week, my sister Teresa asked me to find the conversation that she, Lisa, and I did on Conscious Conversation Central, uh, stepping into the unknown about surrender. And I think you're right. And I also think that the time has come for that to actually be the way forward. Because and I did just publish it on the channel yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Again on uh, well, both New Light Streaming Love and Sassy Seer Sheila, because I in particular had a terrible time with that word and the idea of surrender. And I know that it had a lot to do with, yes, the experiences that I had in the physical, but also due to a lot of programming and conditioning. And for me, I see what you were saying about it happening that quick as not just a possibility and a plausibility, but an exact way to do it. And the only thing that stands in my way is this residual programming and conditioning that I still have in my field. However, to your point in regards to surrender, it is not lost on me that this RZN series that I've been recording of Jason's speaks to just that, and the fact that once enough of the nodes, and we've all thought about this being so as well, enough beings who are ready to put that down and hold the sovereign mindset, um, that the overlay, which is what that timeline that you referred to, I see that as that false overlay, to fully collapse. And enough of us, I've heard enough folks that have been working on themselves internally, um, have said over this past year that they feel something big building, coming, whatever, right? And we've actually felt that for probably longer than a year. And I see it as, because in many ways, I haven't felt as though this war timeline, I think is the words you used. Like I am actually existing on that. I've heard about it, but I never once went into fear about it, which was not the case with all these others that we've had. So I feel as though that the time for that is at hand, honestly.
Mhm.
Just how shortly that is, I have no idea. Or how many, according to Jason, 1.7, 1.3 to 1.7% is all it takes.
Oh,
And
wow. That's such a
so we'll
tiny
just
number.
see. Well, again, that to me speaks to the power of
Yes.
the sovereign and what, as creators we have. And Lisa, I believe you were present on my front porch July 16th or 17th, whichever it was when I actually said those words. We were all sitting on my front porch in
Mhm.
2016. And I said, I suspect that we are creator beings in training. And I've always thought that, and I still feel that. So, again, lots of other puzzle pieces have come now. For a while, I had kind of started to put that down because I was like, well, apparently not. But now I'm
Well,
back to that same feeling.
we created this
Mm.
mess, so we are creator beings.
Right?
It's time now to consciously be aware of it and to create consciously, which is
Right.
the new thing here
Hmm.
on the planet, because it seems like we get here and we lose our little minds, or we just live in our little minds and we lose our grand fullness of who we are. And it's time to take that grand fullness into this reality and express it
Yes.
like as our art and set that free in this world. And I think a lot of us are, and that is why the external is changing. And it may look like a mess, but I was thinking about our conversation that we just had, Sheila, about my hospital stay and what I was told about that lattice around my heart. Well, that lattice, you could say, is the lie, the myth that we have told ourselves
Yes.
about what's real and what we're capable of and who we are. And that the message I got about my physical condition was it's time to put that lattice down. It served for a period of time, but it no longer serves. It's now creating stagnancy. And, and then I had the water around my heart. So that is also stagnant, right? It wasn't where it should be and it wasn't flowing through my body like it needed to be. It was stagnant and it was causing dis-ease within
Right.
me. And I think that is a metaphor for the greater condition that we all have right now. And I loved what you said, Summer, about that oscillating between being your eternal self, outside of this reality and then in this reality, and outside this reality and inside this reality. And at any time, we could take this reality and manifest it in this reality, but we don't. We come back in here and we engage with that old gnarly lattice. So it's not a matter of we can't do it in an instant. It's a matter of we haven't yet. And that's okay too. I mean, I've been holding it that way for myself for a little while now because it's less punishing and I don't have to be mad at myself for not doing it. Like, why am I not doing that? Because I'm flitting in between and I'm making choices based upon the information that I allow myself to see and acknowledge. And so I just allow myself to see more of the truth and more truth is being revealed to me. And I think there will be a great tipping moment for myself and then, of course, collectively. Because, I've had those dreams where I put down old belief systems and my body morphs and changes. And I'm on stage doing this. And then
Hmm.
as I get to a certain level of putting down old belief systems, and I do it through a comedy routine, is this vision. And then
I
at,
love it.
at a certain point, so the audience is along for the ride. And as we laugh at me and my thinking, they kind of know I feel the same way, or I remember doing that myself. And they put it down with me, just even if it's just for a moment, for the duration of the comedy routine. And then at the end, there's this moment where we've put down so much of these hilarious belief systems that we used to allow to create our world at large and put them down so completely. We keep getting lighter and lighter and lighter and healthier and more attuned to who we truly are, that all of a sudden I'm standing there in my full light body emanating before your eyes. And those of you who took the ride, because it was just an invitation to join me, actually stand there in their light body. And you could look around like I could see from the stage, because all of a sudden it goes to where I can't see the audience because I have a spotlight on me, to I can see the audience because it's glowing. And as I look out there, not everybody went for the ride, and that's okay. But the ones who did looked just like me. And so I think maybe it's just a metaphor for what we've all been doing, those of us who are at least willing to laugh at the belief systems we were holding and put them down. Because it changes your physical, how you show up. Your physical vehicle morphs and gets free of that clay that we've packed on there that was leaving it rigid. Think of fascia and how it responds to trauma, and when you free that fascia, when it's fully hydrated and fully appreciated and fully functional, well, it just glows. I'm sure it's photoessence or fluorescence. And when we're done being the stagnant dead water, we become living water. And that just looks, smells, and tastes completely different. So I feel like we are headed for that moment where, and now for something completely different is upon us. I really think that. Yeah, no, I feel that.
Yay.
It's a body cellular feeling because I'm changing. The more that I put down the false beliefs, the freer I'm becoming, the healthier I'm becoming, the happier I'm becoming, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it starts in that subtle body.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. That's where it comes through.
Yep. Yep. And it's you, you add to it. You either run your energy through the divine template, right? And just flourish, or you pack it with um um, I can't think of a good word, but garbage, and run your energy through that, a false matrix, if you will, and then you just feel drained, and then you got to wear the false matrix, and it isn't pretty, and it isn't alive, it's death, and it doesn't feel good at all. And so I think, like Summer, enough of us are done playing that game. And at least for some of us, there will be a transformative moment where we never pick up the old belief systems again and play with it. It would never even occur to us to do such a thing. Because I'm catching myself doing that more and more. So I know it's possible. And I'm living that for myself.
Love this conversation, ladies. I'm so grateful,
Me too.
Summer, that you wanted to get together and have this conversation.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, me too.
I want to say too that for anyone that is bearing witness here to this conversation, if you feel you have something to add and you would like to join us in conscious conversation in regards to this, if you have experiences you'd like to share, then you can reach out consciousconversationscentral@gmail.com and we'll have conversations. about it, because I personally feel like this is, at least this has been the by far, having these conversations over the last 8, 9 years with Lisa, with Summer, with anyone really who's interested in having these sorts of conversations, has been actually imperative for me to have. They so made such a difference for me personally in having these kinds of conversations. So I really feel strongly about offering that to anyone who wants to engage in conscious conversations. So, yeah. Do either
Exactly.
one
Yeah,
of you have
because
anything else you want to share? I'm sorry,
um,
Summer, you were starting to say something when I.
oh, I was just saying that sometimes it just helps to have that community where you can actually have these conversations, because a
Mhm.
lot of us don't have people in our everyday life that we feel that we can go there with,
Right.
you know? And so it does really help to have that outlet if you are so inclined to want to hash these things out. It's important, to speak in like-minded, but also just open, like, spaces where you don't have to agree or see things the same way, but it's just it's um it's very beneficial to have others to kind of like just express with and bounce things off of. And like you've said before, we gain so much from each other's fields too, just like without even having to verbalize things. We kind of pick things up from each other's fields. And I think that that kind of goes back to what you were talking about at the beginning, where way showers, the concept of way showers to me is kind of like we're all in this jungle, and we have our machetes, we're hacking our trails through. And if someone finds that trail behind us, then that's great. But, it's not necessary that we're doing the trail for ourselves, right?
Right.
To get
Yes.
through that forest, your own self, the
No, that's
jungle.
exactly
Yeah.
correct. And I couldn't agree more, Summer. That's been something that I've said all along. This entire endeavor for me with YouTube has never been about trying to help anyone. I have always been very clear about that. This has always been about helping me. And if someone else feels it was helpful, that feels like a win-win for me. But this was never about that. So, I love the way you put that. Hacking a trail for myself, and if you find it, yay. And see, the truth of it for me too is that because we are all individual perspectives of the one, every experience we've had along the way has colored that perspective
Mm.
and given it definition. And having access to someone else's perspective is absolutely helpful for me anyway, because I know all I have is my one little porthole to look out of. And so by having others join me and being open to hearing their expressive points of view from
Mhm.
their perspective, oh, has opened up so much for me.
Mhm.
So much for me.
Yeah, and sometimes that's the lifeline, like honestly, I've been down in the dumps at times, and just hearing a new perspective is like, whoa, I never thought about it that way. Like it opens up the possibilities, and you're like, oh man, I need to like be more playful. There's more options here. You kind of get like stuck in these little
Right? Those grooves, even
Uh-huh.
in the healing, in the trying to heal oneself of something.
Hmm.
If you start down this path and it's working, So you've got, now you're in a groove of it and it stops working, or it only works so far. If not willing to branch out and see another perspective again, it gets passed by. This is why I call myself a puzzle piece collector, because there's so many pieces of the overall puzzle that if one relaxes their gaze and not have such a tight understanding of anything about your own puzzle, even, you can't see whether or not that puzzle piece over there potentially fits. That's why I look at everything as possibility, plausibility, potentiality. Because of the idea of language being different and perspective being different, um, I have to hold things very loosely and listen with that same looseness as well, because that's the only way I find those puzzle pieces. If I saw something, if I saw my puzzle in just this way, this is the way it is, and it's no other way, I wouldn't get out of those grooves ever. So,
Yeah, I like the way Summer said that. It's complete. So you can't add something to a finished job. Yeah, so I have to hold, I, yeah, I hold myself as a work in progress. Just because there's, I like how Tom Campbell in his book said it's really the eternal nature, um, is change. So if you don't change, that's atrophy. And to stop the growth is actually death. So I really don't want to choose death actively. I want to always grow and explore and change. And you know what? It just feels better to do so when you give yourself permission to be wrong or to learn something totally new, to be in, a work in progress. You really allow yourself to explore any and everything. And I think of Christ's words when he said, to enter into the kingdom, you must become like a child. And I've often contemplated that. What does he mean by that? What is like a child? And I've worked with children. That's kind of my area of where I feel drawn to children. And if you watch them, everything is brand new and nothing is off limits and everything is an exploration. It could be the most mundane, silly thing to us. And to them, it is the most exciting thing with so many nuances to explore. And they are willing to do things with these objects and subjects that we would never consider, like putting it in your mouth, throwing it around and see what happens. Um,
sticking it in your nose or your ear. No, I know, you're so right.
That's right. And so I've tried to have that sense of play with everything, and it actually feels magnificent. And I've never felt more alive when I'm willing to let my inner child explore my reality. Okay, so I don't like what's happening right now. What would make me feel excited? You know, should I give it a lick or a toss? Like, what is it? I don't know, but I find that the more I'm willing to do the crazy thing, the better I feel, and I'll learn something. Like maybe the thing I've tossed breaks open, and I realize I've been playing with the shell and the nut. It is inside. And I
Hmm.
would never have discovered it had I not been willing to give it a throw, toss it around a bit. And that makes like the eternal nature sound appealing because I know for one moment in my life, well, several years, but we'll call it a moment, where I felt like I don't even want to be here. I don't even want to. Eternal life sounds like, oh my God, that would be horrible because there's so many the heart, we'd be trapped in
I don't
heart
want to be stuck
forever.
with these effers. I think it's the words you use.
I did. I did say that. Yeah, I'd rather be dead and conscious of nothing at all, because that's the witnesses believe that you have to either live forever in paradise with Jehovah's Witnesses, or else you're dead and conscious of nothing at all. And I had to say between the two, I wanted the death, because the people that I was surrounded by that I knew, I didn't want to live forever with them. I really didn't. I didn't, there was no happiness in that for me. So that's to me the stagnancy that is so unpleasant. And just being willing to explore something brand new, well, now that adds excitement and nuance and, I don't know, enjoyment into my life again. So, yeah, I'd rather be a kid running around doing silly stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, from
Young.
this conversation today, I've got some very cool key points, Summer's words in regards to expression, because
Mhm,
creative expression, knowing that, which really ties into what you said, Lisa, in regards to children.
mhm.
Um, and just those two things for me, I really am very appreciative of you ladies today for this.
Oh, thank you. I appreciative of you always creating this space and calling us forward to engage in this way, recording it, because I think it's important. I remember when videos like this were a lifeline to me because of what Summer spoke on earlier. I didn't have anybody in my field. Luckily, I have you, but there were years and years where I felt all alone in what I was exploring and thinking about. And so this
Right.
is a beautiful opportunity you've gifted us with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you, ladies.
Mhm.
Okay, so I would love for you both to come back again, whenever the mood strikes, and we'll have
Yeah.
these
Yes. Thank you,
conversations.
Summer, for doing that, for
Thank you both.
calling this forth. This was beautiful. And it was nourishing, and it fed my soul. And so thank you from the bottom of my soul.
Mm.
But I feel like, and I don't know why, Summer, but I feel like that's why I keep asking if you want to express anything other, because I feel like, so if there's not anything at this time, I feel like there's going to be. I'll just put it like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that we could talk about, you know. I guess because you're asking, maybe I'll just put it out there, and maybe this is a different conversation too.
Yeah.
Um, because we've been talking a lot about parasites, right? Especially like in our book club group, is the
right.
Hmm.
super gut. Um, and it's on my feed a lot when I look at social media. I don't know about you, but it seems like
It's
everyone is
everywhere.
focusing on parasites.
Yes.
And part of me wonders, is this another like us versus them? Like there's a war, it's
Oh,
it's like gotta cast this demon out, kind of thing. It's kind of creepy, it's kind of creepy. And um there's just a lot there that I've been kind of
yeah.
grappling with.
Oh, I love you.
Well, I
Thank you
would love to have a
for,
conversation about that.
yes.
I mean,
Like nine things came to my mind I'd like to
right,
explore on that topic.
right.
Exactly.
That's a big
So,
one and a really good one. Thank you for
Right.
that. Did you
right.
write that down, Sheila?
Yes, I will. And
Okay.
Summer, if you just, I'm going to go ahead and end this one, but don't go anywhere, and let's see about getting
Make a
together to
plan.
have that conversation.
Perfect.
So, and I'll just put it out there right now to anyone else that may be listening to this conversation,
Yes.
know that that conversation is forthcoming, And maybe if you ladies are up for it, we'll even do that one live.
Oh, I would love it.
Okay, so that way we could, draw in folks that would like to ask questions or even participate in whatever way.
Oh,
And
yeah.
between now and then, perhaps they actually would like to reach out to me at consciousconversationscentral@gmail.com. Um, I will say this about that, just because I would like for it to be in the psyche when out there in this video.
Okay.
I too have wondered about that because it's in the
Mhm.
feed quite a bit. And the very first thing when I asked myself about that,
Mhm.
very first thing that came for me, well, the mind virus is a very real thing. And Lisa actually wrote about the mind virus
Mhm.
way before we even had the pandemic or anything else. If I'm not mistaken, it was like what, 2017?
Yeah, it
In
was. It's on my
2017,
blog.
in her blog, she wrote about the mind virus. And
Mhm.
I think that's a very real thing. And the other thing that I'd like to offer you in regards to that is just like we spoke on yesterday in our book group. Um, I will say that prior to most living memory, according to my great grandmother, that was something that we did as people was twice a year. Everyone got dewormed, deparasited twice a year using different home remedies and whatnot. And
Mhm.
that's something that has disappeared in the modern realm for whatever reason. I don't know.
And it was just like bathing once a week and washing your hair. It was just something you did to a maintenance type
Right. Exactly.
activity.
Yeah, because that was so funny you said that. My great grandmother said the exact same thing. Just like we always bathed once a week, whether we needed it or not, is how she put that. So,
Right.
I'll just put that out there for that.
Yeah, they're just were set intervals for things that, because I remember that as a child. Because, by the time I was coming up, we were showering once a day at the minimum, and sometimes twice a day, depending on what your day entailed.
Right.
And so to hear that people were bathing once a week was like shocking and felt gross. But
Right.
yeah,
Okay, well, thank you both so much again, and we will be getting together to do this again. And so I will just say to everyone, um, do move towards that which brings you joy in each moment that presents itself to you, and at the very least, towards that which draws your attention, because there's something in it for you. As to what you'll find there, who knows? Maybe it's a new explorative, a new expressive thing to do. But for me, that's the only way forward. Until we meet again, thanks, my friends.
much love.